Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. It's weird to say we're watching Star Trek from the beginning because we're so close to the end.
The end of an era is almost upon us.
We're only 3 episodes from the end.
I'm afraid so.
Oh, it's so sad because this show has brought new Trek to me, and we're only 3 episodes from the end. What a bummer. Well, we have arrived at Season 7, Episode 22, Tacking into the Wind. This episode aired May 12th, 1999.
Yep.
Anything to say about last week's episode, When It Rains?
No, it was perfect. Just everything was going wrong.
And it was the shocker of shockers at the end of that episode.
Yes.
There's some shocks in this episode as well.
Unfortunately, you know one of them.
Well, I did know one of them, but I wasn't prepared for what happened after that. So we will talk about that.
Oh, that's good. There'll be a lot of ongoing over-analysis and discussion to this one, I can guarantee it.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we are recording in the middle of the night, so who knows how today's going to go. Could be completely weird.
And we're both sober, so...
Well, that's usually true. Well, you have the notes this week, so off you go.
Okay, so let's get started. We open with Kira and Damar's band of merry men reviewing footage of a Jem'Hadar ship exploding. It had been sabotaged, but as Kira points out, the bomb was not placed in the correct spot on the ship. And she's telling Rusot that his men ignored their instructions and it was only successful because they got lucky.
You gotta fire this guy. That's what my notes say. And what's also funny is my notes turned Rusot into Aristotle.
Yeah, I don't think this guy's an Aristotle.
That's why I was momentarily confused. But okay.
Well, Rusot claims that the guys who did this were 5 of his best men and actually uses one of their names. Garak and Kira have to explain, again, they're not supposed to use real names. Each cell must be isolated. And I feel for Kira here because it's quite clear these guys are just not getting it.
No, they're not taking it seriously.
Yeah, and I was wondering about this. Are the Cardassians, are they a lot of box checkers? They're just like, oh yeah, good enough, that's done. Check the box. That's sort of their thinking. Going back to Garak when he said, goals promoted beyond their skills.
Yeah.
These guys ignored orders, put the bomb in the wrong place, got away with it by pure luck. And then it's like, yeah, we did good enough.
Well, let's look at who they fought before. They attacked the Bajorans, who were not, at least didn't call themselves an empire. They were not a military presence by any stretch of the imagination.
They were decades behind the Cardassians, yeah.
They basically conquered a non-military people, so they could probably afford to be a little incompetent and still make progress, but they do not live in that world anymore.
No. After Rusot leaves, Kira confronts Damar about him, saying, are you going to do something about him? Damar replies, I am. I'm giving him my support. Now, I can kind of understand this from Damar's standpoint.
Yeah.
Rusot is clearly someone with connections. From the previous couple of episodes, we saw how Rusot pretty much put together the officers who would help Damar. So he must be of enormous importance. And I think this is maybe where politics comes into play. And we know how Kira just doesn't get the politics, or just doesn't really like the politics. She looks at this guy as just incompetent, where Damar is being forced to deal with the fact that I need him because he's good at this one thing, but he might not be good at actually running an insurgency.
Yeah, I don't know that the word politics is quite right, but he's definitely being strategic in how he's using the only resources he has.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we would ever before have faltered on the side of saying that Damar understands leadership. I don't think he does. I don't think he's ever shown that he does. But in this situation, he recognizes that he needs this guy.
Yes.
And he can't alienate him. He can't alienate the few people that he has.
Right.
I mean, I also get Kira's side. This guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
But Damar has to work with the resources that he has. But when it comes down to it and the person is actually putting Damar at risk, he does the right thing later.
In the end, yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything. You know, when we started this podcast, one of the things I really wanted to talk about was women in the future. And we talk about it in every episode. I don't have something to say in every episode, but we bring it up.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, too, we started to talk about leadership, one of my all-time favorite subjects.
Yes, we have.
And I'm so completely shocked by the number of emails we get of people who really appreciate those conversations that we have. And this is such an interesting example of leadership when we look at sort of how Kira has to behave in this episode and how Damar has to behave and how the two of them together are making a formidable team because they have decided that they need to put everything negative behind them and they need to find a way forward, and they've done it.
Agreed.
But there's also sometimes real short-term value in linking yourself with someone that you know is not your future.
Yeah.
Almost like I have to compromise myself in the short term in order to make the long term do the thing that I need it to do.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard and sometimes even impossible for people. I struggle to do things like that. I've had to do it, but I've definitely found situations where I maybe lack respect for someone for whatever reason, but I got to find a way forward.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to do that. And you can't look at it from a selfish point of view. You have to look at it like, am I doing this for the greater good? Is my team going to benefit from this? Is something that is overall positive in the long run? Then you have to ask yourself if you're doing the right thing. And that's the way that I view what Damar is doing here.
Oh, very much so. It's fascinating to see Kira and Damar working in this way on a bigger project with a more important outcome than either of them getting their revenge, in inverted commas, on the other one. That previous episode where Rusot said, you spent all your time on Tarek Noor telling me about how you hated her.
Right. Yeah.
Back to the episode, and a very tired-looking Odo reports to Kira and details that their raid on a shipyard was very successful. Auberginois here, his acting is great. He's appearing like he's actually physically tired, and this isn't something we've ever seen from Odo before.
No.
There's a definite nice little touch in the acting here to give you that impression of something is wrong with Odo.
Yeah.
Odo goes off to rest, and then we see him still in solid form, but extremely flaky. He actually looks worse than the evil founder woman.
Oh, it's tough to look at.
Do you think the virus is stopping him from returning to a liquid state?
Yeah, I was wondering that too, because it certainly seemed like he would benefit from dropping into a bucket, so I don't know why he doesn't.
Right.
He did look like, we talked about this back in that episode where Garak tortured him.
Yeah.
He's back to looking like the shrimp from the Muppets.
Oh, dear.
It's the hair.
Oh,
it's the crazy hair. Yeah.
Well, very quietly, Garak goes into the bunk room where Odo is resting and is shocked at his appearance. Odo says, it's just like Garak to sneak up on him.
Yeah, he's annoyed.
But Garak apologizes, saying he had no intention of sneaking up on him. And I think we all know, oh yeah, he totally did. That is too much Garak for it to just be oh, I'm sorry, I accidentally did that.
I don't know. I didn't think he was trying to sneak up on Odo,
Really?
But I do think he always maybe sneaks into a room.
Yeah.
Like he's always quiet. I don't know that he was intentionally going in to see if he could catch Odo in this state.
Okay.
Is that what you think?
Overanalysis time.
Oh.
There's two people who are going to notice changes with Odo. One of them is Kira, the other one is Garak.
Yes.
Garak absolutely knew something was up and went in there, sneaked in there deliberately to see if he could catch Odo, to see what was up.
Okay.
I think he suspected it, and I would see Garak totally doing that. If anything, just for his own self-preservation.
All right, I'll give you that one.
Thank you. Garak asks Odo why he's deteriorated so rapidly, and Odo explains it's because he's been changing shape dozens of times over the last few weeks, and it obviously accelerates the disease. So they've been there for weeks at this point. This has been an extended period of time. And
just the tragic irony of Odo, who has not been changing constantly.
Yeah.
Remember something that Laz, that other changeling who appeared, criticized him for. And that's really what's extended his health and his life. But now he's willing to do whatever it is that he has to do rather than worry about himself.
There's also a certain level of irony that he's doing these things to help the Cardassians.
Yeah, good point.
Garak suggests that he should stop, but a very grumpy Odo says no, he doesn't want to sit and wait and die. He came there to work, and that's what he's going to do.
He's like, bugger off.
We also learn that he does not want Kira to know his true condition, and Garak agrees to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
Odo is also extremely crabby here, telling Garak if he doesn't want pity from the woman he loves, Why would I want it from you? And I found this rather annoying because there's a difference between pity and genuine concern for a friend or trusted colleague in this case.
Yeah.
It's like, Odo, learn the difference. Otherwise, you just come off as a bitter curmudgeon.
It's such a TV thing where, I'm just going to try to keep this deadly thing that I have from everybody around me.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
And into the opening titles we go. Well, what about that for a shocking opening?
Oh, it was absolutely shocking to see Odo in that state.
Yeah.
For sure.
After Deep Space Nine, where there are a lot of Klingon ships hanging around the station, Miles comes in to see Julian and asks how his research cure is going. And it's going nowhere. Miles tells him the only way they can find a cure is to track down the people who created it. They need to get inside Section 31. Julian is extremely dismissive, saying they've hidden for over 300 years. They won't suddenly come out into the light just because Miles and Julian are on the case.
I didn't think Starfleet had been around for 300 years at this point.
I think he was just referring to the Federation.
Okay.
Miles still wants to take this to Sisko and get Starfleet intelligence involved. But Julian doesn't want to play cloak and dagger anymore, saying this is now down to science, and very rudely tells Miles to leave as he's got work to do. Now, Julian's in crabby mode. Is everybody in crabby mode in this episode?
Well, everybody's getting their nerves stretched quite thinly. I mean, Julian said he hasn't slept for 3 nights, so he would be cranky.
Oh, he's genetically engineered. He can go a week without sleeping.
Well, maybe not a week, but obviously 3 nights. He's still cranky.
Why didn't he bring in the other augments if this is so important?
Because they're not on contract.
Oh, they're only guest stars.
And they're off doing their musical.
Oh, that's right. They're doing their musical augments.
Yep.
Cut to Gowron, who's complaining that Martok's attack on Avanal 7 was a disgrace. It should have been an easy victory. And the camera pans to show he's whining at Sisko, who tells Gowron, Martok and I both advised you against this. Apparently Martok was outnumbered 6-1. Gowron takes on the mantle of a really bad executive, saying, a good commander finds a way to beat the odds and not hide behind them. That is like textbook idiot executive.
Oh, he's being such a dick in this scene.
Sisko is now getting very annoyed and asks Gowron if he even read Worf's after-action report. 7 ships destroyed, 5 severely damaged, and Martok critically injured. Gowron now does this just hilarious shrug and says he's expected to survive.
Oh my God, that was funny. I laughed out loud both times I watched it with his eyes super wide.
This is enough for Sisko. He is in full righteous anger mode and shouts at Gowron, the blame lies with the man who ordered the mission, not the one who tried to carry it out. This is where I love Angry Avery. He's great here. You can really feel he's got the passion for this character, the way that Avery plays it.
Oh, this is one of the best scenes, maybe, of the whole season. Yeah, I loved it. Sisko telling Gowron off and Gowron being like, oh, that Martok guy, he sucks. It's crazy, yeah.
And of all the people to complain to.
Mm-hmm. What Gowron doesn't know is Sisko loves Martok, so he's come to the wrong place to look for support.
Exactly. Well, almost dismissively, smiling, Gowron replies, that's what I like about you, Captain, your loyalty to your friends.
That's good.
He is such a politician. He twists this around onto Sisko and almost turns it into a, well, you would cover for him. Rather than looking at it like it was a stupid idea. It's like, oh, no. Sisko's not criticizing the idea. It's just sticking up for his friend.
Right.
Well, Gowron finishes saying, Martok is still popular. I won't relieve him of his command. Yet. Here I think Gowron would probably be, he would be on the board of any major Fortune 500.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's definitely one of those CEOs who's failing but continues to get jobs.
Right. Off to Cardassia, and Weyoun is explaining to not quite as flaky as Odo, evil founder, and a Breen, the Klingon raid on Avanal was easily broken up. I'm guessing here he wants to start with the positive news, begin with the good stuff.
Yeah, he is definitely trying to spin everything to be positive, yeah.
Well, the founder isn't very impressed, and she wants to know what's happening with the Cardassian rebellion. She says they can't fight everyone and face a full-scale uprising. Do you notice she's also starting to look a little blotchy as well?
Yeah.
I can't imagine how long she must have spent in makeup.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a great-looking effect.
Mm-hmm.
It totally gives you the sense that literally she is peeling apart. Weyoun, of course, displays all that wonderful overconfidence that got Weyoun 7's neck broken by Worf, telling them it's all under control, Damar only has a handful of terrorists at his disposal, and he assures them this rebellion poses no threat. whoever this Breen is in the room, does the modem connect sound a bit? And the founder agrees, pointing out that Weyoun also assured them Damar would never turn against the Dominion. This triggers Weyoun going into full excuse mode.
He's like, who could have predicted that?
Yeah. It's totally not my fault. It must be someone else.
Poor Weyoun.
And then looks completely shocked as the founder says, if our cloning facilities were operational, I'd eliminate this Weyoun immediately.
Oh, man, that was brutal.
It was funny.
Yes. I mean, it was funny, but it was also terrifying.
Well, she orders the Weyoun to redouble his efforts to find Damar's wife and children. And they must make the local population understand dissent will not be tolerated. She then orders Cardassian civilians should be put near military facilities. So if Damar destroys them, civilians will be killed, and it will turn his people against them.
Yeah.
Oh, I really don't think she gets the plot here. If the Dominion is putting civilians in harm's way, are they going to blame Damar or the Dominion?
Or the people who made that decision.
Right.
Yeah. Well, she is definitely getting a bit desperate.
Yes. Weyoun tries sucking up, saying, an excellent plan. And the founder replies, your opinion was not solicited.
Oh, burn. That was good.
Oh, that's really going to sting. I mean, Weyoun's only wish really is to serve his gods.
She's had a while since she's been given some really strong lines like this, and she delivers. Salome Jens.
She tells the Breen, who we learn is called Thot Pran, the install of the Breen weapons on Dominion ships must be accelerated. And then the founder asks Weyoun, how long before the cloning facilities are operational? And Weyoun says, several days. And then
maybe weeks.
Perhaps weeks.
It's like, dude, you better run for the hills.
She replies, well, keep me informed.
Yeah. Sure.
I think she might have just encouraged Weyoun 8 to perhaps reprioritize work into other areas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, we'll work on the cloning facilities last.
Yeah, you saw him be afraid.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's taking a risk here because look what happened with Weyoun 6. He headed off to find Odo and serve him. So now this Weyoun 8 has a really good reason to do the same thing. He could justify in his own mind, this founder is now terminally ill.
Yeah.
She's making bad decisions that could harm the Dominion. I need to find Odo. He's fine as far as they know. So he could take that same logical approach.
He could, but the dissent in the ranks of the Vorta is pretty rare.
Yeah.
If I think about that episode, I believe that it's some kind of flaw.
Oh.
Or at least that's the way they look at it. So it would have come out by now. Yeah. Whereas she's just doing the normal things she does with these creatures. She has no respect for them. She expects complete loyalty. She doesn't think that they're really sentient.
Right.
They just sort of do whatever she tells them to do. So she's not going to think of it that way, which is why she's just like, I'll just get another one.
So you wouldn't see this one even in this situation, even considering...
I'm saying that it seems like historically it has been something that has been like a character flaw sort of immediately. It wasn't that they evolved to have that flaw. And remember, they hid that from her. That Weyoun 6 went off with Odo.
That's true. She didn't know he was...
She'd probably be pretty mad if she knew.
Yeah, so it would have to be baked into the Weyoun. Oh gosh, because I wonder if that would result in them actually terminating the Weyoun line completely. They're too dangerous to keep around because we had this flaw.
That's what I would think. Yeah. That's gotta be what's going through Weyoun's mind right now.
Because I did notice when she left the room, he did give her like a dirty look.
That's funny.
You know, maybe the sheen's coming off their gods.
I'm afraid so.
Not so deferential when you've been told you have an expiration date.
And also when you look like you have an expiration date, maybe you're not a god anymore.
That's a good point.
The wheels are coming off this whole thing.
Back to the caves of Damar, and Garak is explaining how the Breen will start installing the weapons on Jem'Hadar fighters. The Federation still hasn't figured out a way to counteract them, and no one's figured out why it won't affect Klingon ships. Kira and Garak want to capture a ship so that the Federation can use it to build a countermeasure. Rusot objects, saying their priority is to free Cardassia, not to do the Federation's dirty work. I'm starting to see the problem with the Cardassian military here. They're not exactly strategic thinkers.
Not strategic at all. And again, we're seeing that Damar has stepped up into that role of strategist.
Yeah.
If you think about back when he and Dukat were in cahoots and working together, Damar played the role of Rusot. in that scenario.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, too, if maybe this is just the role. The second in command is that person.
That's an interesting take. Cardassian lower ranks do not think strategically. It's not expected of that role.
It's all for Cardassia. Cardassia is great.
That would cause such trouble if there was only one person who was allowed to have the idea.
Well, again, they lost to the Bajorans.
Yeah.
They couldn't win this war for the Dominion.
Well, they didn't win against the Federation either.
No. My exact note here is Damar's proving very strategic now that he's sobered up.
Well, fortunately, Damar agrees with this plan, and Kira wants to take a 4-man team plus Odo to seize a ship.
4-person, not a 4-man team. She's going along.
Garak then privately tells Kira the truth. Odo's been hiding just how bad the illness has become, and how changing form makes it worse. Kira replies, I know. Garak seems genuinely surprised, and Kira tells him, I love him, Garak. You'd think I wouldn't notice. She then asks, is there anything else? And they go back to planning the raid. You can't keep secrets from Kira.
No, you can't. I was thinking here how these people that Garak is accidentally interacting with.
Yeah.
And by these people, I mean the Kiras, the Siskos.
Yeah.
He must either think these people are nuts, which is quite possible what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Or he must be really feeling a tremendous amount of respect for them. Because what they're doing, they're showing that even though maybe they're underpowered, they don't have the ships or the person power to fight back against all these other odds that are always against them, they somehow pretty much win every time. So he's got to be seeing, you know what? It's these freaking people.
Okay, we have to do some overanalysis here then.
Okay.
Here's what I think is happening with Garak. Garak is actually seeing the concept of the never-ending sacrifice with these people.
Oh.
The Cardassians talk the talk, but they don't actually live up to it. They're not actually that dedicated. And what he's seeing with these people are people who will put their lives, their well-being, their loved ones, whatever it is, on the line to achieve the purposes they think are noble, and usually are noble.
For each other.
For each other. More than the Cardassians will do.
It's so true. Oh, fascinating.
What he views is his mythology of what Cardassia should be like. These people are the living example of it.
You could view this as the entire point of Deep Space Nine.
What, the never-ending sacrifice?
No, to turn Garak.
Ah.
I mean, you could. If you did, if you were going to write a thesis about Deep Space Nine, it could be that. It could be the evolution of how Garak views the people he is stuck on the station with at the beginning.
Yeah.
To, what he goes through.
Garak's journey.
It would almost be fascinating to do an intense study of just the Garak episodes and to sort of weed out everything else, because there are big groups of episodes where he doesn't appear.
Yes, there's not enough Garak in the series.
Yeah, that would be an interesting podcast to just focus on the Garak episodes and Garak's journey.
Oh, I do not disagree.
There's the name of the podcast even, Garak's Journey. I mean, we got the whole thing. You just have to do it.
That might be a special, yeah. Back to DS9 and a docking warbird. Martok is in sickbay with Worf, and Sisko calls him to his office. Sisko tells Worf they have a serious problem. And it was great the way Worf immediately replies, Gowron.
Yeah.
Sisko tells him Gowron insists on continuing the offensives, regardless of the cost. And Worf describes him as a stubborn and arrogant man. Sisko says he hopes he's not a fool. He's risking their entire defensive posture. Worf goes on to tell Sisko the problem is Gowron sees only one thing right now. Martok is a political threat. The attacks are designed to humiliate the general and to force him to suffer defeat after defeat. A shocked Sisko asks, so this is a political vendetta? Worf goes on to say, it would not be the first time a Klingon Chancellor put his own interests ahead of the greater good. Isn't that true for all politicians?
Oh, unfortunately, yes. But it is crazy. I mean, you can see it on Sisko's face. It's completely crazy to think that while this war is being lost and people are just dying left and right, Gowron is more concerned about his own personal vendetta. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode. This is an example of crap leadership.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's absolutely not willing to make any compromises. And instead, he ought to be using Martok as his greatest weapon.
Yeah.
But instead, he's basically trying to kill him off or humiliate him. And just, what a moron.
Well, because he's popular and Gowron wants all the love.
Yeah, but use him. especially if you ever talk to Martok and you realize he don't want your job. So use him in a better way. Be smart. But he's being a total idiot.
I think there's a reason for that. Gowron is untrustworthy and would stab you in the back to get power.
Yeah, he's never really had any allies.
Yeah. Even if he said to your face, oh, I will support you, I don't want the leadership, Gowron would be lying. He assumes Martok is the same kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the problem with crap leaders that you can't trust.
I'm also surprised that Sisko hadn't come to this conclusion already.
Sisko is very focused on too many people in the Federation dying.
Yeah.
He's not thinking about that kind of nonsense. He's got too much going on.
But even then, Sisko is pretty good with the politics.
Even though we haven't shown it for a while, Sisko is still completely torn up by the names of the dead that he has to post on the wall in the wardroom every Friday.
Right.
I can't imagine he would see as a default that somebody else wouldn't think that was the worst thing possible.
Gotcha. So he's not looking at it from the perspective of a corrupt politician.
Right.
Worf agrees, saying, I have a solution, but it will not be easy. And Sisko tells him, do whatever it takes, Mr. Worf. Those Klingon ships out there are the only thing between us and the Breen. Gowron is risking the safety of the entire quadrant, and it has to stop. First of all, I think it's really risky to tell a Klingon, do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
In any situation.
I really thought Worf should have said here, there's something I can do, but you're not going to like it. And then he could have said, do whatever you have to.
Yeah, I think if I was making this, the next scene, Worf would have walked in and plomped Gowron's head on his desk and said, the problem has been solved.
Yeah, done.
And before we leave the scene, I think this problem only exists because he sent Garak off to help Damar.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure after learning what Gowron is up to, there would have been a tragic accident where Gowron slipped, leaving the sonic shower and accidentally fell on his bat'leth.
Yeah, without Garak, he doesn't have a lot of people he can rely on to do that dirty work.
Yes. I think Garak would have done it on his own initiative if he discovered that Gowron basically was tanking the war effort.
Yeah, but would he have discovered it? I mean, Garak isn't really involved in those discussions, but the only way he would have found out is if Quark, who seems to find out everything, if Quark had found out and told him.
Yeah. Back to the caves of Damar, and Gul Rusot is now needling Kira, claiming that she's really there just to kill more Cardassians. She killed hundreds during the occupation and wants to hang a few more neck bones from her belt.
Ugh, this guy. Didn't we have somebody who did that? Wasn't it a Klingon? He had Cardassian neck bones?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She goes to leave and he pushes her back down. And in a Garak's voice, I hear, ooh, that's a very bad decision.
Yeah.
She immediately beats the snot out of him, getting him in a chokehold and telling him, don't ever touch me again. After hurting Rusot a little, she lets him up, and he tells her, when this is all over and the Dominion is defeated. And Kira replies, you won't have trouble finding me.
Yeah, she has no fear.
Oh, yeah, I loved the way she was smirking at him.
I mean, it was very difficult in that situation, sort of the way that she was positioned, the way that he was positioned, to believe that she had any chance of getting any leverage. But I liked the little point that they made that she knows where all of his nerves are. And that made me think that there is something to this. I mean, you've had this theory all along about the different levels of gravity or something on their planets.
Bajorans are stronger.
Yeah, and maybe that's true. But I like this idea that they actually have maybe an inordinate number of nerve endings in their bodies, and that's something that, because the Bajorans would capture and kill them and then cut them up, is something that they learned. And she knows how to really take very specific advantage of that.
That's some good headcanon, Cap.
I took a lot from this episode.
Well, Rusot leaves to nurse his bruised ego.
Oy.
And from the shadows emerges a smiling Garak saying, oh, you'll have to do something about him long before that, Commander. This was so great. The way he's totally hiding in the shadow.
With a phaser.
Yes.
I mean, they make a whole big deal of it, that he would have shot him if he needed to, but he chose not to.
Oh, absolutely.
But why do you think he chose not to?
This is actually one of my overanalysis points.
Okay.
I think because Garak was waiting to see what the outcome would be. If Kira was under any threat, he would have shot Rusot.
Yeah. So he was being strategic.
Yes.
Because if he had just shot Rusot, he could have compromised the whole mission.
Exactly. He wanted to see what would happen.
Okay. All right. I was wondering if he was maybe just deciding that he needed to give Kira the chance to do it.
You could also maybe take the view that he might have stunned the both of them.
Yeah.
He warns Kira, Rusot will not wait until the end of the war to make his move. I suggest you don't wait either. Kill him before he kills you. Into a dramatic ad break. I really liked that scene. I thought that was very good.
That was a great scene.
We cut to the sick bay on Deep Space Nine, and Martok says, "Challenge Gowron in the middle of a war? It is treasonous." Worf tells him, "Gowron is leading us all to ruin. It is your duty to challenge him." Well, Martok won't do it. He won't break his oath. They argue about honor, and Martok doesn't think the members of the High Council will react well when asked to follow a common man from the Keitha lowlands without a drop of noble blood. See, this is the problem with believing in monarchy and aristocracy.
Yeah.
Some idiot from nobility leading your nation is just as bad as any idiot leading your nation. It ultimately destroys you.
Mm-hmm.
Worf continues his appeal, saying Kahless himself was not highborn, and that Martok's name is revered throughout the Empire. If he seizes the leadership, every warrior will swear an oath to support him. The High Council will have no choice but accept him as Chancellor. Martok tells Worf he sounds like a Romulan, and will not raise his hand against his Chancellor. And finally, he does the classic Martok thing and says, "His decision is made. We will not speak of this again." I can't decide if Martok is truly loyal or if he just really, really hates politics.
Yeah, tough to say. Politics and paperwork. He complained about that before.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, he likes being in battle, but it's like, dude, this guy's just trying to kill you. You got to do something.
Off to a Federation runabout with Kira and Odo, and Kira tells him she's worried. He tries to reassure her that by the time the symptoms manifest, Dr. Bashir will have found a cure.
Mm-hmm.
In the back of the runabout, Garak tells Kira that the Dominion have located Damar's family, and Damar, without any emotion, says, "They're dead." He goes on to say, they weren't part of this rebellion, calling it casual brutality and asking, what kind of state tolerates the murder of innocent women and children? What kinds of people give those orders? Kira, who's been listening to all of this, says, "Yes, Damar, what kind of people give those orders?"
Burn.
Damar just glares at her and leaves. Kira sighs, saying out loud, "Oh, that was stupid." But Garak tells her, "Oh no, not at all. Damar has a certain romanticism about the past. He could use a dose of cold water."
How much could Damar really have cared about his wife and kids? Meanwhile, he's been doing nothing but drinking and carrying on with other girlfriends. I mean, I struggle to feel bad for him.
That's my concern. What happened to the girlfriend? Is she okay?
Yeah.
I hope she's all right.
I don't know.
Maybe you got her to safety.
But also, how dumb are you that you didn't protect them?
Right.
Kind of dim here.
The other thing here is, doesn't Garak have something of a romanticism about the past? About Cardassia?
I think he certainly did, though I think over time it's evolved.
Yeah.
I think it really changed when he had that last sort of thing with his father.
Oh. And I suppose when he was actually a Bajoran in Odo's flashback.
Maybe, though, too, being from the Obsidian Order, he has always been prepared to do whatever it takes to protect and save Cardassia. And it's not so much about romanticizing it as it is the sacrifice part of it.
Yeah. So he's always been prepared to do that.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's how he was raised. By that
That's true.
Lunatic in the grandpa sweater.
So his reply to this could be, well, people like me.
I have two other things about Garak in this scene. One, his hair is a mess. It's too long.
He's been living in a cave.
It needs a trim. The other thing is, I'm not sure how I feel about his speech. I don't know if I agree with that or not, with what he said, that this is exactly what Damar needs in this situation, right? If he's going to lead Cardassia, he needs this cold water splashed on him or something.
Needs a dose of reality.
Yeah, I don't know. Does he need that dose of reality from Kira? I get that he maybe needs the dose of reality of what really happened, but did he need Kira to remind him of who she is and what the Cardassians did to Bajor in this moment?
Yes.
I'm not sure I agree with him.
I absolutely agree.
Oh, okay.
I think a lot of the Cardassians seem to have this romantic view about the occupation, that the occupation was going fine and it was just the Bajorans causing trouble that made the Cardassians do what they did. Not the fact that they were basically occupying and invading another planet with a sentient species.
I don't disagree with that at all. What I disagree with is the moment in time that Kira did it.
Yeah.
And again, maybe this is just a leadership thing, but I firmly believe when I need something from someone, I don't go out of my way to piss them off in the moment.
Yeah.
I might do it later, But in a moment of high intensity, I'm not sure that's the right time to bring it up. But yeah, that's maybe just me. But I agree with you. I think he does need to hear that, and the Cardassians in general need to hear that.
Well, the runabout finally reaches the rendezvous, and it's with a Cardassian shuttle, and they beam aboard. Back to DS9, and Worf is talking with Ezri, telling her that it was foolish for him to ask Martok to stand against Gowron, and he will try to convince Gowron to discontinue the attacks. Ezri tells him she can't really give him advice on Klingon matters, and he goes on to tell her she is still a member of the House of Martok. A very surprised Ezri says, "This is the first time I've heard of it," and Worf explains how Martok likes her and considers her an honourable woman, a worthy successor to Jadzia. I thought her look here was pretty funny, of like, "You didn't tell me about any of this?" And Worf now asks her, "Tell me what you think." And Ezri goes for it.
Yes, she does.
She replies, "You're not going to like it." She tells him Gowron is just part of a bigger problem. The Empire is dying, and she thinks it needs to die. Worf replies, "You're right, I don't like it." Ezri continues, saying she looks at the Empire with more skepticism than Curzon and Jadzia. I think that's definitely true. I mean, those two seem to be very romanticized about the Klingon Empire. She sees it as a warrior culture that prides itself on maintaining centuries-old traditions of honor and integrity, but is willing to accept corruption at the highest levels. She asks Worf, who was the last leader of the High Council you actually respected? How many times have you had to cover up for the crimes of Klingon leaders because you were told it was for the good of the Empire?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's pretty much every Klingon episode of The Next Generation.
Yeah, it kind of is.
She's on a roll now, telling him Gowron is just the latest example of a corrupt government, and that Worf is the most honorable and decent man she's ever met. And if he's prepared to tolerate a man like Gowron, what hope is there for the Empire? Worf doesn't say anything and just looks very serious.
I think most honorable and decent man after Martok.
Well, Martok's also the most Klingon, so he's got one extra thing there.
That's true. I said it before, and I'll say it again, these two make better friends than anything. It's a little bit harsh for her to say the Empire is dying, and it deserves to die.
To Worf, yeah.
Yeah, to Worf. There are other ways to say that. I mean, even her speech about the corruption at the highest levels, right, that part of it was good. Everything she said was true.
Yeah.
But her opening sentence would have really turned off the listener. I don't know, this is a heavy leadership podcast, but to me, if you undermine your own credibility before you start, it can be very difficult to get the person to listen to the rest of your point.
A better way might be to start with the Empire needs to evolve or die.
That would have been much better.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Worf would almost certainly agree with that.
Yeah.
His goal that he's always wanted is for the Empire to become unified and to become more than it is today.
And he's got to, at this point, believe you can't do that behind corruption.
Yes. We go to the Cardassian shuttle, which is docking at a very cool-looking space station. And I assume this is Dominion Station?
Yeah, I don't know. It must be,
It doesn't look Cardassian. I mean, Cardassian architecture has a definite look.
No, it's not Cardassian, yeah. Because it's not that rust color that everything is in Cardassia.
Well, Cardassians like that color because it helps hide the rust for their decaying empire.
Oh, I see.
Well, the plan seems to be to pretend that Kira is a prisoner for the Vorta. The Cardassian at the airlock approves their arrival. As they're heading to the bridge, he quietly wishes Damar good luck. He knows who he is. Was this guy part of the plan?
I don't know. Damar's not even disguised. I mean, are you really trying to tell me that the Vorta doesn't know what Damar looks like?
It does seem a little odd, doesn't it?
I mean, come on. But yeah, I imagine this person was part of the plan, yes.
So Kira is taken to the bridge, and on the way, she drops her handcuffs, and they turn into Odo.
I knew that was Odo.
On the bridge, a female Vorta is in charge.
With crazy purple lipstick. Again, we've got these overly made-up female Vorta. It's so funny.
As she reviews the orders on a datapad Garak hands her, the evil founder woman enters, and the Vorta immediately is in deference mode.
Mm-hmm.
The evil founder inspects one of the Jem'Hadar's weapons and hands it to Garak, saying, "An excellent weapon. What do you think?" Garak immediately shoots the 3 Jem'Hadar on the bridge and the Vorta, and the evil founder turns into Odo.
Yeah.
You saw that too.
I did see that coming, yeah.
Odo tells Garak, "You didn't need to kill them all."
Don't know why Odo would care about the Jem'Hadar, or the Vorta for that matter. But he doesn't like to kill.
Well,
that's been true since the beginning.
I think that highlights the difference between Odo and the changelings or the founders. He actually values life, even the life of the Vorta and the Jem'Hadar, whereas they don't see anybody but founders as anything. This is where Odo's the evolution. He feels some empathy towards other living creatures.
Yeah, I guess so.
Although, if you didn't want him to kill everyone, you shouldn't have given the gun to Garak.
Yeah.
Well, they plan on taking the ship, but things get tricky when Garak reports the technicians haven't yet finished installing the Breen weapon. They can't leave.
Yeah.
We were actually given a hint to this. When you see that Vorta for the first time, she actually says it's 2 hours and 14 minutes to the first weapons test.
Yeah, I noticed that the second time through.
The other thing I loved here is when he gives the weapon to Garak, there's no quips, there's no messing around. He just shoots.
Yep.
No talking, just straight to business.
Just shoot.
Back from an ad break, and Garak calculates it'll take 35 minutes to finish the install, and Kira says they just need to sit tight. Naturally, they get an incoming call, and Kira has to pretend to be the Vorta. And I really liked here how she puts like a little condescending tone into an annoyance into her voice when she's talking.
Oh, she played it well, yeah. In my notes, I wrote, why wouldn't Odo play the Vorta? Because then they could have also done the visual, but yeah, he shouldn't be doing more changing than necessary.
Right.
And also a budget.
Well, the caller just wanted navigation data, and Odo transmits it over. Rusot then asks, what happens if they don't believe you? And a stern-looking Kira replies, then we're dead.
Hey, Rusot.
Back onto DS9, and Julian is still working. Miles has brought him some food that Invisible Keiko made, because she's still on the station, but we just don't see her anymore. Julian reports he's still stuck at square one. He's not making any progress. So Miles brings up what would happen if Section 31 found out Julian had a cure. Julian thinks they'd send Sloane or an operative to destroy it. And Miles tells him, you should send a message to Starfleet Medical telling them you have a cure. Julian says, you're trying to lure someone from Section 31. What happens when they get here? Miles explains his plan. They'll capture them and figure out a way to get the information out of them. Even if they don't have the info they want, they'll know who does.
Yeah.
Julian tells him, it's a plan. It's a very good plan. When did you get so devious? And a smirking Miles replies, I've been hanging out with you for too long.
Yeah, it's a good plan.
I thought this was a surprisingly good scene. It really did show the friendship of these two and how Miles can get over Julian's sort of harshness of his inability to really communicate his feelings well. Like when he just tells Miles just to get out.
Yeah.
He's just being himself.
Well, good friends can do that, right? They can just go, all right, you were having a bad day.
Now over to a Klingon planning meeting with the terrible table, and I made sure to look at the table as you pointed out. It's just like metal mesh.
Are we in the station here, or are we on a Klingon ship?
I think we're in the station.
We must be in the station because it wasn't red and smoky.
Nobody was smoking.
Yeah, okay.
Gowron is now showing the next target, Sarpedion 5, headquarters of the 12th Order. Martok points out it is the most fortified Cardassian world in the Empire. Sending in 15 battle cruisers will barely scratch the defenses. Gowron mockingly tells Martok, if you lack the courage for an uphill battle, perhaps you should retire to your bed. Now that's a Klingon insult.
Yes.
Martok stands visibly annoyed by this and says, I will fight any battle, anywhere, for the Empire. Well, Gowron's got what he wanted and carries on outlining the plan, but Worf stands and declares, no, we cannot attack Sarpedion. He tells Gowron, you rule without wisdom, without honor. You're squandering our ships and our lives on a petty act of vengeance.
Finally.
Yeah, this really angers Gowron, who declares, I should have known better than to trust you again. If you were a true Klingon, I would kill you where you stand. That child's uniform shields you from your rightful fate. Oh, love it.
Why? Why does it shield him?
Yeah.
Bring it.
Worf takes off his Starfleet badge, so there's going to be trouble.
He should have taken off his whole uniform and just stood there in his underwear. Been like, let's go.
Yeah. Worf says, what I say now, I say as a member of House Martok, not as a Starfleet officer. He looks at Gowron and says, you have dishonored yourself and the Empire. You are not worthy to lead the Council.
Yes. Jeez.
Gowron takes off his heavy coat and throws it on the table and picks up a bat'lath. Martok tells Worf, this is madness. But too late. The fight begins.
But what's with the rest of the Klingons? None of them, they don't do anything. They're like, oh yeah, this, Gowron, he knows what he's talking about. No, he doesn't.
I think a lot of the other Klingons are like, yeah, I don't want to get involved in this. The two stunt doubles are doing a great job here, and we see the whole fight taking place through the display board, showing the battle lines for the Klingon ships. Another one of those odd directing choices.
I wondered if they were trying to block the fact that these were stunt doubles. There's a couple of shots where you just have to laugh because it is so clearly not the actors.
Oh, well, there's the one guy with the batleth who's advancing towards Worf, swinging it from side to side, and it's
that is not Robert O'Reilly.
Who's this guy? Where's Gowron? Well, Gowron breaks Worf's batleth, and he's forced to pick up only the snapped-off ends. Worf continues to hold his own, and we get lots of good close-ups of Worf deflecting the blows, and Gowron eventually knocks Worf through the glass display. And I think maybe that's why we're showing the fight through it.
Oh, yeah. You bet. It's like going through a window, but you can't do that on the space station, so...
Exactly. That's exactly what it was like. Well, Worf is down and stunned, and Gowron steps up, raising his batleth to strike Worf on the ground. But it's all a feint. Worf immediately sits up and strikes Gowron, stabbing him in the stomach with both pieces of his batleth.
Yeah.
Quite bloodlessly, I'll note. Gowron appears completely shocked and steps back. He sits on the edge of the broken display and says, "You will not have this day," and then collapses backwards. That was really good. I actually laughed at that. It's like, yeah, game over.
Yeah, that was an amazing scene. I wasn't sure what he meant when he said, "You will not have this day," in the way that he said it.
I thought it was him just saying, "Oh, you're not going to win this," and then collapsing and dying.
Oh, yeah, I suppose that is what he was saying.
Maybe that was speaking to Gowron's overconfidence.
You got 2 blades in your gut. You're done.
Yeah. Oh, but it was such a great fight. Plus, Gowron's got to be nuts. Worf already kicked his ass once.
Yeah, Gowron is nuts.
Well, Worf kneels over the body and roars as Martok takes the Chancellor's coat and puts it over Worf's shoulders, saying, "Hail Worf, leader of the Empire," and then begins chanting, "Worf, Worf, Worf,
Worf, Worf, Worf."
Worf stands and shouts for them to listen and says, "What I have done was for the Empire. A new day must dawn for our people. I am not the man to usher in that day, but there is a man here who can." He takes off the coat, and Martok puts out his hand, holding Worf at bay, telling him, "I do not seek the leadership." Worf replies, "Kahless said, 'Great men do not seek power, they have power thrust upon them,'" and puts the great coat on Martok's shoulders. He shouts, "Hail Martok, leader of the Empire, leader of destiny." That was one of my favorite Star Trek scenes of all of Star Trek.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, it was amazing. It was funny because, Worf was very briefly Chancellor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in charge and could have taken it. And there was it in the Sword of Kahless when he very briefly was like, I can be in charge, right?
Yep.
But I guess he didn't have that here. I think it's funny that they quote Kahless as saying the line about leadership thrust upon them. But I agree. I think it's true that the best leaders of people are not seeking it out because it's not about glory. It's not about them. And so I definitely agree with that statement.
Over to the Jem'Hadar ship, and everything seems a little tense on there. The Breen are having trouble with the installation. They're going to have to continue to wait. Odo seems to be having some trouble, and then all of a sudden falls to the floor, and he's gone fully flaky.
Shrimp Muppet.
He tells Kira, "I'm sorry." And Kira says, "Stay with me, Odo. We're going to get out of this. Just hang on a little while longer." Rusot is starting to freak out. He says, "The shapeshifter is useless. The whole plan is coming apart. We need to leave now." Kira orders him back to his post, but he points his gun at us, saying, "We leave now."
Wheels are coming off.
We now see a disruptor pointed at Rusot's head, and Garak says, "That would be unwise." Rusot tries appealing to him, saying, "You're still a Cardassian. Are you going to kill one of your own for a Bajoran woman?"
Oh, yes.
Garak could reply, "I've done it before."
That's true.
See Second Skin for details.
The last scene. Mm-hmm.
Specifically, it was the same woman.
That's true.
Damar now takes out his own disruptor and tells them to put their weapons down. Rusot replies, "I know you want to kill her too, but you're the leader of the rebellion and don't want to kill someone wearing a Starfleet uniform. Let me do it for you." There's a beeping from a console, and Damar reports, "The dampening weapon has been installed." Kira says, "Then let's all get the hell out of here." Rusot tells Damar to shoot Garak, saying, "We can kill them both and keep the Breen weapon for ourselves. I believe in you, Damar. I know you're the right man to restore the Empire we so loyally served. The Empire we loved. Together, we can lead our people to greatness again. Just aim and fire. So that's how you make Cardassia great again.
They always go one step too far, because here he twisted it to show that he was thinking of only the Cardassians.
Yes.
Like, again, they were somehow going to win without the help of the Federation, without the help of Bashir, without the help of anybody. And it's like, dude, no. If you
think so small.
If you were going to win, you would have won by now. Yes, he's thinking so small.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a great standoff here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful scene.
And they're pulling focus between Rusot and Garak. And Garak is looking at Damar, and Rusot is looking at Damar. It's really nicely done, like you said. Well, Damar, coldly, without any emotion, just fires. And we hear a thud. And the camera shows Rusot on the floor, shot squarely in the chest.
Yeah, you are not in the main cast. You're out of here.
Damar says, he was my friend, but his Cardassia is dead, and it won't be coming back. Garak actually looks surprised here.
Yeah.
He may have said those things earlier about Damar's the man to stand up and lead a new Cardassia.
Yeah.
I don't think he actually believed it.
Well, he maybe believed it, but he didn't believe that Damar would get there so quickly.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay. Kira orders they flood all the compartments with gas, and then they take the Jem'Hadar ship and jump to warp.
I love here that Kira doesn't say thank you or anything to Damar. She's just like, ugh, let's go. Just steps over the Rusot.
Garak reports they've cleared the defense perimeter as we see Odo in very bad shape.
Yeah.
He's completely flaky, and the special effects actually are so good they look unpleasant.
Agreed.
Odo tells Kira, you're probably angry I hid my true condition. She tells him she knew all along, and it's not over. Julian is probably working on a cure, but he asks her just to stay there. She nods as he puts his head on her shoulder, and she puts her hand on his face. The end.
Really?
Wow. Again, more awesome makeup from Odo, but that looked really bad at the end. It was beautifully done, and it did look really disturbing.
It did, yeah. That shrimp Muppet makeup is rough. All right, well, I assume you have overanalysis.
Yes, I do. And I think the first point is, how can Damar have an unrealistic view about the Dominion when he's been working with them for months?
Well,
he knows how cruel Wayun is.
He does. I don't know if it's realistic or just television, but until it really affects you, you don't necessarily believe it.
Oh, he's one of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, most of us are. It's like in that whatever episode it was where Atiba and I were talking about if you live in paradise, you know, it's good if you're the one in paradise.
Oh, I getcha.
Yeah, it's similar here. Like, yeah, they're terrible, but until they do it to him.
That's interesting, yeah, that he never really put two and two together. Because I would have thought if you'd had any sense, the first thing you would do would move your family somewhere safe, even to the Federation.
Well, I assume he did move them because it took them a while to find them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you got to get them actually out of Cardassia completely.
Right.
Agreed. Not a genius. But maybe Damar is the best they have.
That's really frightening.
Yeah.
Wow.
You bring it up a lot that Garak said most of those gulls were promoted before they should have been.
Way above their abilities.
Maybe the only really devious strategic ones were in the Obsidian Order.
Oh.
And now they've been wiped out.
This is all they have left.
Yeah. He's the best and the brightest.
Next thing. Was Gowron crazy fighting Worf? Worf's defeated him once in combat. Is this the overconfidence of Gowron? Is his theory that he really could win? This isn't just revenge on Martok. That he's so delusional. He's so wrapped up in his own abilities. Mm-hmm. He thinks that he can fight this Klingon-only war and defeat the Dominion and be heroes. And he's convinced himself of that.
Yeah.
And now when challenged by Worf, he does the same thing and is like, I can easily beat Worf. So it isn't necessarily this political revenge. It's because Gowron is completely delusional about his own abilities.
Well, that's how the Klingons are.
Yeah.
We've seen that before.
Yes.
But I also was wondering if whether or not all those Klingons around the table spend all their time telling Gowron, you're the toughest guy.
Oh.
And he believes it, because that's what happens with people like that.
That would also fit the really terrible CEO mold.
Mm-hmm.
You're so clever.
This is why it's a terrible idea to surround yourself with yes people.
Agreed.
So yes, he's delusional.
Next thing. Esri's analysis of the Klingon political system. I think this is really interesting because I think it shows the contrast between the Cardassians and the Klingons. Worf and Martok seem to want to reform the Empire. Well, certainly Worf does, to build something better. And Rusot wants to go back to what Cardassia used to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel this is kind of spelling out the difference between the two. Worf is willing to accept that we need to move forward, whereas someone like Rusot is, no, we want to go back to what we had.
I like that. And we've talked about that before in many episodes where we see the contrast of something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's literally my only overanalysis point is about Esri's point being correct.
Yeah.
You know, it completely is. Worf has always found the person at the top to be corrupt, and he always agreed to rise above it. And who really benefits from that? Only that one person at the top.
Oh, yeah.
So to get finally somebody in charge like Martok, who actually does have honor and will look out for the Klingon Empire and try to unify it, he might find it impossible because it's never just one person at the top who's corrupt. They all corrupt because power corrupts.
Right.
But Martok at this point and Worf both are looking for something better in the future.
Yep.
Although they do talk a lot about the days of Kahless. But it's not quite the same as what Rusot was saying, right? Rusot wants to make Cardassia great again, and that's not going forward, And also, they're so focused on the isolation of Cardassia and being the greatest and in charge of everything. And Martok has already shown for years at this point that he is willing to work with the Federation, and he shows that he can get along with them, he can respect them, and they can respect him. So he's already made tremendous progress as a politician, even though he doesn't know it.
Well, the other thing I'll add there is the Klingons not living up to the Code of Honor and the Code of Kahless.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Whereas Martok and Worf seem to genuinely believe it. You should be honorable. You should be decent in your dealings. And this is where the corruption comes in of the Klingons like Gowron who don't follow that, who pay it lip service while being self-serving.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's different. It's levels of mythology and being great.
Yeah.
Rather than, we want to go back to the 50s when white men like us had all the power and the money.
And I think my final point.
Okay.
Worf is pretty awesome. This guy has held the Sword of Kahless. He's fought alongside Kor, the Dahar Master, and he was head of the High Council, briefly, by right of battle.
Yeah.
How many Klingons could claim that?
That's a good point. Yeah, it's hard to argue. But he still can be super whiny and immature.
Only when it comes to relationships and bad writing.
Yeah.
You know, just tagging on to that, really, this is all Esri's fault. If she hadn't had that conversation with Worf, everything would have been fine.
Maybe. But, I mean, he was already thinking Gowron had to go. So, Esri maybe just pushed him a little, Yeah,
and they didn't have Garak around to help with that.
I mean, Esri really just sort of pointed out to him the obvious, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it just took her saying it out loud for him to go, geez. If I think about all of my episodes in Next Gen, it's all about this.
House of Duras.
Yeah.
And that, I think, wraps up my overanalysis. Over to you.
Well, we've been analyzing, I feel like, every scene. This is a very long recording.
We have, yeah.
And my only point was about Esri and the Klingon, so we already did that. So I'm going to go to Women in the Future. And here we are in season 7, near the end of this show. And apart from the worst hair in Star Trek history, Kira is absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. She is kicking ass left and right. How frequently did the women in Next Gen do anything? I mean, not very frequently.
There's the yoga episode.
There were a few episodes, but they were never the stars. Picard and Data were the stars.
Yeah.
And they were competent in their jobs, but they were never like this. They were never as affecting of the story. Again, there were individual episodes where each of them did something amazing. But this is so different. When Kira started, that character, we talked frequently about her being broken. Because she was broken. It was still really close to the occupation. All that stuff was still fresh. She still struggled with it. But now we see how loyal she is, how devoted she is to the person she loves and to her planet, to her people, and how much strength she gets from her faith in the prophets, which is something they would have never touched on Next Gen and would have been hard to do on individual episodic television as well.
Right.
What they show in her in nearly every episode at this point is just how freaking competent she is.
Well, she's held this whole mission together.
And while she's being competent, she is still able to show you that there are moments where she is walking right on the edge. When she was going to take Rusot out, she could see the edge from where she was.
Yeah.
But she has grown, she has matured, and she is getting something from the people around her that maybe she wasn't getting before, at least at the beginning of the show.
Well, she definitely seems to be getting respect from Garak.
She definitely has built up respect with Garak, for sure. I mean, this character is amazing. I just wanted to point that out as we get towards the end of the show.
Like I could ever disagree with Kira being amazing.
She's amazing. I mean, considering how when we started the show, I was like, this is an angry woman. I am not that interested. She's very one-dimensional. She was mistreated, mishandled. I do believe manhandled is maybe the appropriate term in episode 1 by Sisko. I was not super excited for what was going to go on with women on this show. And I was completely wrong. Kira is, without a doubt, the most amazing female character on Star Trek, certainly to this point. Now, when Voyager hit, we finally at least tried to have fuller female characters. We need to rewatch that show, though, because I can barely remember it, so I need to remind myself how that was handled, because I do seem to remember that being a little bit bumpy.
Yeah.
But certainly later, we do better with female characters. Like, for example, in Discovery, there's some really well-rounded female characters for sure. But before this, there was nothing. There was nothing. Like you said, there were those two people in their stupid yoga outfits, which now have been made fun of on Lower Decks, which was great.
Yes, that was pretty funny.
So my Women in the Future section today is a glowing review of a female character.
Excellent.
So we talked a little bit before we go to rating about things that surprised me.
Yes.
Because there are things that I saw coming. For example, I knew from Picard that Worf was going to kill Gowron, and I did not know before that Picard episode.
Yep, that was annoying.
So we set that aside, that Worf killed Gowron, and actually that's not that big of a shock. That's a very next-gen thing. I think that would have happened.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know is Martok became Chancellor. No idea. And you said I missed it. Somebody mentioned it somewhere on Lower Decks?
Yes, when they play a game in Lower Decks, the person who announces the game is Martok and actually says Chancellor Martok.
I missed it.
Yes, you missed it, fortunately.
We maybe even weren't that into Martok yet, because it's been this season, right, that Martok has become huge.
Well, speak for yourself.
I meant me, I guess. We on this podcast. Yeah. But anyway, so Martok is Chancellor, didn't know it, so that was a surprise. The way that Worf killed Gowron, that one, I didn't know. The fact that it happened on the station. And I remember there was some other thing that happened on the station that really irritated Sisko, that it's sort of happening in the realm of the Federation. But I think Sisko's going to be okay with this. I also never knew Worf was Chancellor for a minute. That was news to me, too.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other thing that I did not know about was Odo getting the sickness. I didn't know. I knew there was a sickness, but I didn't know that Odo had it. And boy, that is rough.
It really is.
All right, let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
I lament I only have 2 thumbs with which to give it a thumbs up.
I agree.
Absolutely excellent episode. Yeah. Everything about this was good.
Incredible.
From Sisko with Gowron at the beginning, through to Ezri and Worf, through to the fight with Gowron, to Martok becoming Chancellor, to Kira holding together this critical mission, and Garak just being absolutely on form. Fabulous episode. Absolute thumbs up. Really enjoyed it. So much good stuff crammed into this one episode.
Yeah, I agree. This is an incredible episode. All the stuff with Gowron was amazing. I mean, the guy who plays Gowron, I'll miss him.
I know.
That guy is great. Yeah. And Martok as Chancellor, amazing. Even the little scene with Ezri telling Worf, the Klingons, you guys are a mess, right? That was great.
Right.
The idea now that Miles has to lure Section 31 to the station, that is great. All the stuff with Kira was great, and Garak. it's almost funny how well those two work together and what a great team they are, even though I think they remain suspicious of each other. They still make a really good team.
Right. Well, I would see with those two, there would be a lot of historical context which they would have to get over.
Yeah, and they've proven that they're willing to do that. And then the last thing that's great is Damar. I really like Damar. I like this version of Damar. The only two things missing in this episode, no Kai Wynn and very little Sisko. That's really the only... You can't have everything.
Oh, you didn't mention Ducat.
Yeah, I don't care about Ducat. All right, that wraps up Season 7, Episode 22. Come back next week for Episode 23. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com, or you can reach us on all the social media platforms at Rebingeit, including YouTube, Instagram, Threads, what used to be called Twitter. And you can join the conversation on the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. And the last thing I want to say is don't forget, when we are done with Rebinge Deep Space Nine and we move on to Rebinge Voyager, we're going to rebrand the podcast Rebingeit. So be sure and look for us wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.